following subject matter is real and only intended for mature audiences. Discretion is advised.
People are dead after deputies say a man went on a shooting rampage.
I knew a week before she died I was going to kill her.
I can tell you the scene out there is absolutely horrific.
Nobody knows where this individual may strike next.
This is 10-Minute Murder.
Welcome. It's 10-Minute Murder, brief and bingeable true crime. My name is Joe. I'm the host, and I appreciate you joining today. If it's your first time, before we get started, quickly make sure you subscribe so that in the future you don't miss any episodes. Also connect on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Links for that are in the show notes of this episode. And also, if you enjoy the podcast, by all means, you can rate and review on Apple Podcasts. But more importantly, tell a friend that you like this podcast, and maybe they'll like it too. A lot to talk about today, so let's get to the story. At first, nobody really paid much attention to the death of a 25-year-old named Ahmaud Arbery back in early 2020 outside his South Georgia community because the coronavirus pandemic was dominating the headlines. It wasn't until a video of his last moments surfaced a few months later when outrage spread across the nation. It sparked outcries about America's negligence of Black lives. The men responsible for Ahmaud's death had not even been arrested at that point, yet authorities knew exactly who they were. So why hadn't the case progressed at all? Probably because they were white and knew the right people. Everyone who knew Ahmaud Arbery could tell you the young man loved to run. Unless it was pouring rain, Ahmaud would be jogging around his neighborhood near Brunswick in Glynn County, Georgia. There, he had taken his first steps in life, and also there, he would take his last. Born May 8, 1994, Ahmaud Marquez Arbery was the youngest of three children of Marcus Arbery and Wanda Cooper Jones. Ahmaud, or Maud, as his friends and family fondly called him, was known to be a bright kid with an infectious smile. At an early age, he met one of his best friends named Akeem Baker. The two were raised close to each other in apartments in a mostly black neighborhood. Akeem had always wanted to be friends with Ahmaud, who was likable and carried himself with effortless charm. While Ahmaud was the funny guy on the school bus and often the fastest boy on the football field, Akeem was a little bit on the heavier side and generally kind of shy. However, that didn't stop Ahmaud from picking him early when choosing teams on the playground, making sure Akeem would not be the last one on the line to be picked. From the beginning, the two friends knew they were always going to be there for each other. The boys later attended an integrated high school of Brunswick, where they studied side by side with their white classmates and neighbors. According to Akeem, while they had no issues during this time and the high school felt like home, he and Ahmaud still recognized the bias toward young African-American men. Quote, "But it wasn't really like living with fear. If we see a white person or something, we weren't thinking, this person absolutely hates us, or that person has evil intent." Besides studying together, the two teens also played together as linebackers for the Brunswick High School Pirates. Ahmaud was a fantastic athlete and excelled in sports. He dreamed of one day becoming an NFL player. However, Akeem, who was more into reading, saw himself as a doctor one day. So eventually the day came for the two friends to go their different ways. Ahmaud planned to stay back home and he had a job at McDonald's, and Akeem moved to Atlanta to Morehouse College, where he thrived in a school that produced Spike Lee and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The two men, who said they felt more like brothers than friends, never stopped keeping in touch and never stopped helping each other out anytime they were needed. However, it would not be too long before they would be back together in Brunswick. In 2016, Akeem graduated with a degree in biology, then went to Boston University for his master's degree in medical sciences. But growing depression caused him to eventually drop out, and so Akeem returned to Brunswick and took a job at a nearby chemical plant. Ahmaud had left the town briefly to attend South Georgia Technical College, but had also returned to his hometown and was now working with his father in landscaping in addition to washing trucks. While the two men didn't have much time to see each other that often anymore, Akeem quickly noticed that his friend was struggling. Ahmaud's NFL dreams had failed. He was living at home with his mother and not enjoying the 9-to-5 life. He'd also been convicted of shoplifting from Walmart in 2017 while he was still on probation from having a gun on the high school campus in 2013. Ahmaud was desperately waiting for his moment to come, but he was still there for his friend, just like he had always been. He encouraged Akeem to drop the sciences and pursue a career in music. The two had often driven the streets around their neighborhood rapping together, so Ahmaud knew his friend had talent. Feeling new confidence, Akeem once again left Brunswick and moved to New York City in August 2019 in hopes of becoming a hip-hop artist. He could not have known that his best friend would be dead just a few months later. At the beginning of 2020, Ahmaud appeared to be on the verge of a personal and professional breakthrough, especially because his long probation was about to come to its end. During this time, Ahmaud's mother had not had any issues with her son still living under her roof, as long as he kept himself busy and fit if he could. And so Ahmaud did. He turned their garage into a gym with workout equipment and started to run every single day. He would take off from his mother's house, then go down the street toward Fancy Bluff Road. From there, he would turn onto a 2-lane road, which was lined by oak trees adorned with Spanish moss. After around a mile and a half, Ahmaud's path would take him to a predominantly white neighborhood of Satilla Shores before finding his way back home. On the morning of February 23, 2020, the 25-year-old took off on the exact same route he had run so many times before, with one big difference. That day, he did not return home. As Ahmaud was jogging through Satilla Shores, he was suddenly stopped by 3 men, 34-year-old Travis McMichael and his father, 64-year-old Gregory, and 50-year-old William Roddy Bryan. Thanks to Roddy, the following events are known in pretty good detail, as for one reason or another, he was filming the entire encounter with his cell phone. First, Ahmaud approaches McMichael's pickup truck, and we can hear somebody shouting, but you can't exactly make out all the words. Ahmaud then ran around the vehicle from the right side before he was confronted by Travis holding a shotgun in the front of the truck. For a moment, the two are out of view of the camera, just when the first gunshot can be heard. For a short while, Travis and Ahmaud were seen there struggling over the weapon before disappearing again behind the truck as the second shot was fired. When they reappeared, Ahmaud made his last efforts to save himself, throwing punches at Travis. But unfortunately, the third and final shot was fired at point-blank range. And this time, it was fatal. Ahmaud collapsed in the middle of the road, bleeding out. The truth is, there's nothing that justifies this shooting. Ahmaud had been out there running and doing what he loved, and the 3 people had chased him and cornered him. He didn't look like he belonged in their neighborhood. The initial explanation given by George McMichael on the scene, who was a former police officer and an investigator for the Brunswick Judicial Circuit District Attorney's Office, was that he thought Ahmaud looked like a man suspected in several break-ins in the area. Although curiously, police were aware of just one recent theft from an unlocked car. Nevertheless, George had said he saw the young man running down the street and called to his son Travis to come with him to confront this person. But of course, they brought a shotgun and a .357 Magnum to do that, because George said they believed the suspect was also armed. It never seemed to cross George's mind that he could call the actual police to take care of the situation. I wonder why. When the 2 men came face to face with Ahmaud, George claims that he yelled, "Stop, stop, we want to talk to you." As Travis exited their truck with the shotgun, the black man had begun to attack him violently. As a result, Travis had no other choice but to shoot him 3 times. Still, given George's career history and just general bias, authorities widely accepted the explanation for quite a long time. It took 3 prosecutors and the 36-second video of Ahmaud Arbery's final moments to be published on May 5, 2020, before things began to happen. The same day the footage started to circulate online, Prosecutor Durden said he wanted to send the case to the grand jury to decide whether to bring charges. Finally, 2 days after the national outrage caused by the graphic video, Gregory and Travis McMichael were both arrested, charged with murder and aggravated assault. The next day, May 8th, would have been Ahmaud's 26th birthday. #IRunWithMaud was shared by thousands across social media as supporters documented a 2.23-mile run and walk to commemorate the date of the young man's untimely death. On May 21st, William Roddy Bryan was also arrested and charged with felony murder and a criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment. During the preliminary hearing against the three suspects on June 4, 2020, it was revealed that Travis McMichael had widely and openly used racial slurs on social media and messaging services numerous times. William Bryan also had several messages on his phone that included similar terms, which didn't surprise anybody, really. When the GBI agent was then asked if he believed Travis still had acted on self-defense, he replied, quote, "I believe Mr. Arbery was being pursued and he ran until he couldn't run anymore. And it was turn his back to a man with a shotgun or fight with his bare hands against the man with the shotgun." And that is basically how the jury eventually saw the events leading to the death of Ahmaud Arbery. On November 21st, 2020, after 10 days of hearing testimony, they found William Bryan and the McMichaels guilty of murder in addition to other charges. The verdict stated that Ahmaud had not posed an imminent threat to the men, and there had not been any reason to believe he had committed a crime. Therefore, there had not been a legal right to chase the unarmed man through their neighborhood in the middle of the day, slaughter him, and then claim self-defense. At the point of this recording, we don't know exactly what the sentences of these three men will be, as the sentencing date has not been set. Also, the McMichaels and William Bryan will still face hate crime charges at the beginning of 2022. It's been a long road for Ahmaud's family and his friends, but they're not giving up before justice is fully served. As Akeem once said, "We are just doing whatever we have to do to keep running with Maud." That's today's 10-minute murder. Brief and bingeable true crime. Thanks for listening today. And quickly, let me go through a couple of the things that I know I didn't get to during the course of this story that you're going to say, well, what about this? Well, what about this? And one of those main ones being there was a house in the neighborhood that was under construction. Just the roof and some of the walls were put up. And Ahmaud was seen on camera a couple of times inside this property. He didn't steal anything. He was just walking around and looking, like he might have been taking a break from his jog. And this, on the surface, seems more significant than it actually is, because there's a reason those cameras were set up. Ahmaud wasn't the only one that would occasionally visit this house under construction. There were loads of other people. They would show up and just have hangout parties in there. But Ahmaud was the only black person that was seen on camera at this house. And he was also the only person that was chased by three armed men, because they had seen him on that property. He never stole a single thing from there, and there were many other people seen in and out of that house, which is why the cameras were set up in the first place. The people in the neighborhood knew that the homeowner didn't really want people in and out of that place, but the McMichaels took it upon themselves to be the judge, jury, and executioner, instead of, if they suspected a crime, calling the police. All right, I feel like I could discuss this case for another hour and still not scratch the surface of everything that was involved. But this isn't an hour-long podcast. It's 10 minutes or so, and I've already exceeded that, so I'll stop for now. But before you go, make sure you are subscribed to 10-Minute Murder. Also connect on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Links for that are in the show notes of this episode. And also, if you have friends that may be into brief true crime podcasts like this one, tell them about it. Let them know where to find it. Thank you for listening to 10-Minute Murder. Be safe and have a good night.